Hey, how you doing, Coach Chris here? And was thinking about something that's very, very important that I want to talk about. And I apologize for the length of this video, but parents of athletes, this is very, very important. And so, really take a moment to digest this and share it with your athlete because it's very, very important, especially moving forward. And it's the issue of playing time. You pay money, you travel, you hotel stays all over the place, and your kid's not getting much playing time. So what do? Well, I know. I've been on all sides of it. I've been the athlete, I've been the coach, I've been the official, I've been the parent. And so I understand the dynamics that go on in that situation, but this is geared towards the parents. And that is, you're in the stands, you see that your kid's not playing, and you start to get frustrated. And tempers start to boil because if it goes like one game and then two games and it starts to be a reoccurring story that your child's not playing, now you're starting to get heated and now you want to say something. So you're in the stands and you start talking to close friends and other parents, and then what that does is that starts to create a divisiveness because now you have the crew that's playing, their crew of parents is having a conversation, and then the second string is having a different conversation, and it's not the same conversation. And what happens is parents start to point out mistakes. Well, that kid's making that mistake, and my kid wouldn't make that mistake. And a lot of times at a young age, especially kids are 10 and younger, a lot of the coaches are just dads. And you already know how that goes. If you have a dad that's a coach who's trying to relive his youth through his child, and I'm not pointing any fingers because I've coached my kid for many years. I just knew when it was time to turn him over to someone else. And so if it comes down to it, where there's a choice, where the coach's kid or your kid needs to go in at crunch time, a lot of times it's going to be the coach's kid. And so I get it. I completely understand, especially for like moms, single moms that may not be entrenched in the rules of the sport and the dynamics of the sport, but they're just there to support their kid. And then, their kid's not playing, and so they don't really understand how to handle it. And so I've seen so many times that it just explodes. You get a parent that starts screaming at a coach during a game or at a practice, pointing fingers, yelling, grabbing the kid. That's it. We're out of here. We're never playing for you again. And then you make other players and parents decide on what they're going to do. They're going to leave or stay. And none of that is good. None of that's good for the kid because the bottom line is it's youth sports. It's youth sports, and such a small percentage of kids make it to Division I scholarship level, professional level. So we have to keep the main thing, which is development. Okay, kids can have fun in sports even if they don't play college or pro. And so we have to keep that the main thing. And so here's how you do it. If you're concerned about your child's playing time, you have a right to question. And what you want to do is you want to teach your child how to navigate in that situation. Because what's going to happen is that as they get older, they need to learn to advocate for themselves because mommy and daddy can't be there all the time. Okay, and so you want to start training your child at a young age to be able to speak up for themselves when it comes to coach, because coaches of young kids are accustomed to the fact that they're the boss, and the kid's not going to say anything to them. And a lot of times young coaches don't have all the experience or the knowledge. And so in some instances, it's the blind leading the blind. And as a parent, you have to identify that. And then you have to figure out how to navigate through that. And so I'm going to give you some key things that are really, really important when it comes to discussing your child's playing time. First of all, don't approach your coach after a game, especially after a loss, and it could be a heartfelt loss. You definitely don't want to do that. It's not the right time, especially if your kid didn't play. I could see it now. Your kid didn't play. You lost a nail biter, and you're coming at the coach like, my boy should have been in, and we would have won that game. Next thing you know, the coach is like, well, no, that's not going to happen. And depending on the temperament of the coach, that could escalate. So you definitely don't want to do that. Not before a game, not after a game. Practice time is not the time either. Maybe before practice you should schedule a meeting, or after practice you should schedule a meeting, but schedule a meeting. Okay, say, hey coach, I'd like to talk to you about some things. Do you let me know when you have 10 minutes free where you can talk to me? Then when you approach the coach, you approach him and say, hey look, my son or daughter loves this game, but they're just not playing. And I'm paying my money and we're traveling everywhere. We want to see our kid play, and our kid's not playing. Is there something, anything, what can my child do to get more playing time? and you instruct your child to have that kind of conversation. Go to the coach and say, hey, coach, I really want to play. I really like this, but what can I do to get more playing time? Now what you do is you put it on the coach, because the coach has a scheme. They have an idea of how the players on their team fit, and your player being one of them. And so if your coach sees your player in a certain light and you want to see him in a different light, you got to ask him, hey, coach, what can my child do to get more playing time? Then just wait. Okay, well, maybe you can hustle more on defense. Maybe you can show up to practice on time. Maybe you can stop fooling around when I'm talking. Maybe you can focus on the execution of our plays. Those are things that the coaches notice that maybe you didn't notice. And then what you do is you take that back and you say, okay, this is what the coach said. Now I'm going to work on these things. Now, if you work on the things and you're still not getting the playing time, that's when we have another situation. Because you've put it on the coach, you're paying the coach money, you're traveling and supporting. You're not being divisive in the stands, and you're being a professional. And you're approaching the coach like a mature, respectable person, allowing him to come up with his thought process and give you an educated response. Now, if the coach doesn't own up to his end of the bargain, then you have another situation. And so, definitely, I do not encourage quitting the team mid-season. I do not encourage that, because that is a message to the kid, to the athlete, to the other athletes that, oh, if things don't go right, I can get mad and I can just go somewhere else and quit. And that's not the mentality that you want as a player, is a quitter. And so I would try to do some maintenance through the season. If it's at a point where you just aren't going to be with that team anymore, what I would do is I would finish the season out, work on the things the coach said work on, work as hard as you can, because then when you leave, you can say, you know what, I didn't quit, I gave my all, and I gave my best. The coach just didn't see me as part of their plan. And in your athletic future, and in your child's athletic future, there's going to be many, many times that happens. And you as a parent, it's your job to advocate for your child, but it's also your job to work on the temperament of your child, so that we don't have kids that grow up being belligerent to officials and parents and other athletes, and then alleviating the conflicts that we have on the sidelines of our youth sporting events. Because the truth of the matter is, the parents are the ones that give a bad taste in youth sports' mouth, because the kids are just doing what they're told, and they're doing what they're shown. So take a look in the mirror. I am not preaching because I'm an angel, but I'm preaching because I've been there. I've been a parent that has been frustrated. I've been a coach with players on my team with parents that are frustrated. I've been administrators of situations where the decision comes to me. And so I get it, but there's a way that you can handle it, which can be very, very non-temperamental, no conflict, and you can have a calm understanding of what's expected. And so then you learn from that, and you take those tangibles to whatever team you play on. Because I'm going to leave this with you. Coaches cannot argue with effort level. They cannot argue with effort level. If you go to practice and you are busting your butt every single day, coach can't argue with that. Also, coach cannot argue coachability. If you show up to the coach, ask him what he wants you to do, and you do it, that's being coachable. When the coach is talking about mentality and not joking around, and not being divisive on the team, you follow those. Coach can't argue with that. Coach can argue with skills. That takes time to develop, and that's a big responsibility of the coach, to teach skills. So I know I've borrowed your ears for a long time, but I thank you for that. And I'm going to be putting more videos up just talking about sports and youth sports and how to make it more enjoyable, because there's a lot of frustration that happens in youth sports. And so remember, it's about the parents. All right, parents, we have a job. We have a big job. We are examples. And when we lose our head, then we're setting an example to young people that we can lose our head. So with that being said, have a great Sunday. I always say we focus on three things in our Get Better group. We get better in our personal relationships, we get better in our education, and we get better in our sport. And that goes from young person to old person. And if you're not a sports person, you're supporting your child's sports person, so you can still get better in sports and get better as a parent in sports. Let's work on more encouraging and setting good examples. All right. Have a great day with that. We'll talk to you soon.